So today we will discuss different aspects of gender identity, why it's important to understand and use gender pronouns correctly, and how we can work together as a UNLV community to support an environment of belonging and inclusivity. So we're really grateful to welcome this year's panelists. We have AJ Huth, the Director of Public Affairs and Civic Engagement with the Center in Las Vegas. We have Dr. Jason Flatt, Associate Professor of Social and Behavioral Health. We have Drew Sauk, PhD student in sociology and also representing Grad Pride Alliance GRSO. And then we have Tyler Sebastian, who's an MA student in history, also representing Grad Pride Alliance. So today we have a prepared list of questions to get us started, but I also want to welcome your questions. So if you have questions throughout the session, that's why you have these little note cards and pens on your table. Just write your question on your note card, hold it up, and our ambassador volunteers will be coming around to pick up the questions and bring them to me. Also pause a few times throughout to collect questions. So that all being said, let's go ahead and begin our conversation. And what I'd like to do is help y'all learn a little bit more about our panelists.
He, him pronouns. I've been on testosterone since 2016, ironically, 3 days before him. Didn't know that until we met. So, interesting in how this works, but that's a little bit about me.
Thanks so much for having me here today. So I'm Dr. Jace Flatt, and I use he and they pronouns. I'm an associate professor. I'm here in the School of Public Health in the Department of Social and Behavioral Health. The research area that I focus on here is on LGBTQIA plus populations, really a focus on older adults who are often underserved or have been ignored, especially in research. I also look at caregiving, explore aspects around the unhoused and affordable housing, and let's see what else. I also identify as gay, and I'm married, and also identify with being non-binary, so it kind of shows you sort of the range of kind of identities that people can have that maybe don't always make sense to other people, but they make sense to me. And those are the main things.
My name is AJ Huth, she or they pronouns. I am the Director of Public Affairs and Civic Engagement for the LGBTQ Center. We're down the street on Maryland, just past Charleston. It's a little difficult to get there right now because of the construction, but like in 2 years, it's gonna be beautiful. Y'all can just bust straight there. And so it's gonna be awesome. I have been at the center for 10 years. 8 years of that, I was the youth program manager. And when I first came in, there was a good representation between the letters of LGBTQIA+. And as time went on, younger people started coming out, and I would say 90% of the group now is trans kids. And so my experience has mostly been with them, but also, for myself, one of the Q's in Q is questioning. And that doesn't just happen like one day you wake up and you're like, oh, I know this thing about myself. And so, as early as yesterday, I had this epiphany with everything that's going on. I was joking to my wife that we're gonna have to get wigs, and I'm gonna have to get some dresses and some wigs so I can look like a girl, so that I can be safe. And I was joking, but kind of the reality of that, or the image of that, hit me, and I just started crying. I didn't realize until yesterday how important my identity is to me and the way that I express myself outwardly. And it's mostly my own personal style and the way that I dress. I don't consider myself male. I'm not a trans guy. I don't really consider myself non-binary in the sense of, you know, that it is like I have no gender or both genders. I hold my female side, but I like present this masculine side, and that's the non-binary part of me. And so, as Jace was saying, there are all of these different identities, and how we move through the world may change over time as we learn and grow and learn to know more about ourselves and do those deep self-discoveries. And like, whether that has to do with your sexual orientation or your gender identity, we all do that, right? You're not the same person that you were when you were 5. You grow and you learn your own personal style and those kinds of things. So it's really not that different. It's just this other part that we're learning about differently than maybe other people do.
Thank you all so much for your introductions and again for being here with us. So I have some big questions today. This first one, we're kind of starting to getting there, AJ, so maybe I'll start with you. But for our group here, would you please provide an overview of the gender binary? Why and how should gender pronouns be used, and why are they important? AJ, would you kick us off?
So there is big debate in the country right now, like we'll talk about the elephant in the room, that there are 2 genders, male, female, that's it. Although there was one this past week that said it's the gender that you're at conception, which means that we're all female. Because at conception, that's the reality of the situation. Like, there's a lot of biology that goes into these things, and it's just not that simple. One of the I don't know, executive orders or something that came out said something about, you know, that trans women and intersex women were not allowed to be in sports. Was that right? And I'm like, okay, so you're acknowledging that there's intersex people, and we're not talking about trans men in sports. We're just like this very targeted response. And so, like, it's the thing is it's just not that simple. There is, some people say a spectrum. I think of more of a continuum. So if you look at things in a circle, and again, sometimes that circle can move from here to here or back again, right? And so just trying to get people to engage your mind that it's not a simple thing. Like, humans, plants, animals, the planet, it's all biology is complicated, and that's what makes it beautiful. And you know, if we were all the same, it would be so boring. Go with every uniform tree down every path with the same amount of leaves, and you know, it would just be curated and like a video game. And we're just more complex than that as human beings. And I just wanted to, you know, start out with that and maybe open your minds a little bit to that aspect of it.
So I agree a lot with AJ about, I actually don't even like the word gender binary because that means we have to pick one or the other. And so I agree, I see it more as a continuum. Even think of myself and my own journey, right? And how I've identified my gender at either different ages, or honestly, it could be different times in the day or from day to day, depending on how I'm feeling. And so I think it's an interesting thing in society where we want to put everybody into these neat little boxes of like, you can only check one of these, and which one are you? And not talking about the current kind of fascist views around making us, you know, binary in their sense. I think it's just, these are, I think if you were to talk to one person who identifies as a man and another person that identifies as a man and ask them to describe what it is about being a man they identify with, you would get a totally different story. And I think it's the same for a person that identifies as non-binary, genderqueer, right? As a man, as a woman. So really these are unique pieces that are really special about us and how we navigate the social world with others and how we perceive them and how we perceive ourselves within that. So that's how I think about it. And I really loved AJ's point. I actually did one of the first studies in the US with intersex adults. It was not on my radar. I did not even, when I was starting LGBTQIA plus research, I wasn't including intersex people. Sometimes they identify as members of the community and sometimes they don't, right? Again, it's not super clean of like everyone goes in this group or not. And it's 2% of the population. So common is red hair. And if we were gonna try to do this with sports, and I do not want this, but it almost be like before you can compete in this sport, we have to measure your sex hormones and actually see if you're eligible to participate, because if you have too much of one of these sex hormones, you're not allowed to participate. That's basically the way they're framing this, in a sense of saying if you're a man or a woman. Or we can think about in the Olympics, right, the harassment that one of the Olympic athletes received because of that. So, yeah.
Only comes when we're testing women.
Yeah. So there's also the discrimination against women that's happening.
Let's see. I think you guys got the nuts and bolts of the gender binary. As a sociologist, I mean, we are constantly examining the gender binary, how to deconstruct it, what it is, to try to pinpoint it. It's so broad that we're struggling with it. And if we as academics who have picked it apart, especially in Soc, and we're struggling with it, there's times I look at it and I'm like, if I struggle with these concepts, not even the nuts and bolts basic definitions, like there are a lot of people that don't have that knowledge, and it has gotten us where we are. And it's really unfortunate. And another thing that I've noticed, and this is all over the place within those groups, there's no clear delineation in their brain between gender and sexuality. And so that gets horribly conflated because people are able to jump on the old tropes of homosexuality, like, oh, they're gonna turn our kids or this or that, or, you know, the new recent one that kids go to, you know, they go to school and come back a different gender. Yeah, that's a special one for me, because for a lot of reasons, but I'm not gonna go there. You know, I mean, it's just ludicrous. But, you know, that deeper conflation makes it harder. You know, you've got multiple age groups. You've got young kids that are just trying to figure out their skin, and they're facing fear of everything that they're experiencing, rejection, harm, and then they've got this other thing that's literally thrown on them. They're looked at on so many negative levels, and it's so important not just to engage in working with using the right pronouns, but also being that voice saying, hey, sex and gender are different. Biological sex is one thing, sexuality is different, gender. These are very broad and complicated concepts, but there's 3 different definitions. And I feel like just in general, the more people that understand that and can communicate it basically to those that are a little slow on the uptake and like their reality TV, I think the more words and conversations, that's gonna be a big difference. And it could prevent, I'm hopeful, that it could potentially pull away from some of the violence that's gonna exacerbate. You know, it's more about standing in the breach and being that voice of reason and fighting smart, not hard. And that's to stay calm and just realistic. But things are getting difficult. I mean, that's the reality.
So, yeah, they covered a lot. What I will say is I am older than I look, and most of my peers, I am older than most of my peers and colleagues. And the binary thing, definitely for myself, is a thing, because even I mean, I knew I was trans long before I started transitioning, but there was an expectation where you have to pass. You have to be masculine enough. So anything that's flamboyant about me, I'm a little better able to be flamboyant and not feel whatever. But when I'm at the grocery store, I am very rigid, and these expectations that's been drilled into my brain since I was a kid of this or that. And so I do like, despite the current challenges, I do like that there is a better understanding of it not being a binary, of it being a continuum, and people being able to express how they want to express themselves without being stuck as being too masculine or too feminine. And that is, in my own mind, I'm still working out the kinks of that. But I do like that it's research has shown, it's constantly refuted that it's a binary, and people are able to be literally authentically themselves, whether that means sometimes they're more feminine or more masculine. I think just the dissolving of that binary concept has been really awesome to watch, like the younger generation starting to actually be who they are without any restriction trying to fit one way or the other, so.
I like how you brought that up, because seeing these youngsters being able to embrace themselves, but also because they're able to embrace themselves, they don't see difference. They're like, oh, that's my friend. Right. They don't say, oh, that's my friend, they're trans. You know, me personally, one thing coming out, like transitioning, I always used to tell my friends, and thankfully because I could pass, when I meet somebody, I'd be like, hi, I'm Drew, how you doing? It was only after I got to know them and I felt comfortable, then I was able to say, hi, I'm Drew, by the way, I'm trans. But seeing these younger generations, my niece, her group, she's a junior in high school, like seeing her and her peers interact. And they interact with me, they're like, hey, you know, I'm just the cool uncle, you know? And seeing this agency is a beautiful thing, and it is very encouraging. Yeah. And not just because they're able to live, but because their peers allow them to live, and those peers build that safety net that they lose or can lose. So the more advocates they have, the more allies they have, that's what's saving lives right now, is the community allyship, and not just within the community, but without, you know, everywhere. The more these kids feel safe, with more of us standing in the breach, we can save lives right now. And right now, that's going to be a big thing, especially in younger grades. You know, college, we do have a lot of space and a lot of comfort, but these babies don't. And you know, I know I keep saying, oh, this is bad times, but, you know, I'm grateful that these kids that are afraid have their peers and have an army behind them of not just their peers, but elders as well.
Yeah, and, you know, this stuff always comes up, and I guess, like, so I grew up in Florida, have, I guess, more of a conservative upbringing. My whole family does not vote the same way that I do. And so I guess, like, I've had these messages growing up that still, even being who I am, I have sometimes internalized those things. And so, you know, when my granddaughter is 8 years old, we had temporary guardianship of her for a little while. So we still have her every weekend. And so we're a pretty big influence in her life. And I don't talk about this stuff around her, you know, and I guess that's just the way I was brought up, right? Like, we're not hiding anything from her. I'm just not talking about politics. I'm not talking about issues like that. And she'll say stuff like, can you believe that people don't like people because of the color of their skin? And I'm like, I know. She's like, that's really dumb. And I'm like, I know, you know. But what I learned is, one day we were having a conversation, and she asked my wife, Grandma, will God make me get pregnant if I don't want to? Will God make me have a baby if I don't want to? And she was 5. And I was like, these kids in kindergarten are that little boy that was telling her this, his parents are talking about this stuff in front of him. And so like, it's like, okay, so we're going to talk about this stuff, right? And like one day too, she was, I think 6. She's like, wait, you and grandma are gay? And I was like, yeah, because she just hadn't heard that word yet, right? But my gender expression, so how I present myself to the world has been a little bit more difficult for her. Because since she was 4, until she was like 6, she was like, so are you a girl or a boy? And I'm like, we've had this conversation many times. I'm a girl, and trying to explain it to her in the best way that I can, right? And she'll be like, okay, but then like a couple months later, she'll be like, so are you a girl or a boy? And I'm like, okay, how can I explain this in a better way, right? But I know one thing. When she has a trans kid in her class, she's going to understand what that means. And it's not going to be a big deal. And she might be able to be that kid's friend, because we've talked to her about these things. And it's not scary to her. I'm her nan, like, I'm not scary. She loves me, and she loves her grandma, my wife, and we're lesbians, and she knows that, and she knows that word, and we're not scary. We're just part of her family, and so people are like, want to shelter the kids. They really are. I mean, okay, so the gender thing was a little bit more difficult for her, but she gets it, like, and she's not upset about it, and she's not confused. She's like, oh, she's not going, well, maybe I'm something else. No, that's not the way this works, right?
Well, thank you all for laying a foundation. That was really excellent. Really appreciate it. Just a reminder, anyone in the crowd, if you have a question, raise up your card, and Miles or Anna will come collect it. But yeah, so I know, Drew, you started on a little bit like some fear that can be happening with young kids experiencing things. That's kind of a segue into this next question. So, like, what are some other consequences that people face because of misgendering?
For me, misgendering it's not just like, oops, like, I see you as a boy, you look like a boy, so I'm going to use he, him. You're literally like basically just denying the core of the person. Like, it's more than my favorite color's blue or something like that. It's literally at the core of who that person is. And a lot of times that person has limited resources. They may be in a situation where they can't be open everywhere. They can't be out everywhere. Or they're still trying to figure themselves out. And to get to the point where you're like, I'm going to use these pronouns. This is something for me, is a big step, and a lot of times can make or break. If people aren't respecting those pronouns, then it's like, well, I guess I just don't pass enough. Maybe I'll just go back to the other pronouns. It's literally the core of who the person is. It's for anyone who has a lot of faith in their religion, it would be like them telling you you're a different religion than you are or something. It's generally a part of your identity. And there is a part A for this question, which I'll also answer, which is, what can you do if you accidentally misgender someone? And this is very important. If you misgender someone, you can do a quick, sorry, he. Don't make a big deal out of it. Don't be like, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry, I forgot you're trans, or I forgot you're non-binary. Don't make a big deal of it, because people will misspeak sometimes. A good example is my mom will call me the wrong son's name, which was also when I knew she fully respected my decisions, because instead of mistaking my name for my sister, she started mistaking my name for my brothers. But those kind of oopses happen, like, Tyler. And so the average person around hears a misgender and may literally just be like, not think anything of it until you make a big deal. If you're just like, he. Like, that's all you got to do. You make a big deal, and then all of a sudden it's drawing a crowd. And for someone who may not be presenting as well as they want to, or they don't think they're passing, even if they are, don't make a big deal out of it, because it's very important. And not to mention, a lot of times people don't want to be put on the spot like that. Like, just all these people are looking like. So, yeah, that for me, it's misgendering them accidentally and just quick fixing it is probably not going to hurt them as much as intentionally misgendering them, because again, it's the core of who they are, and it may be in flux, it may be transitioning, and they're still trying to figure out where they fit. But when they make that kind of request, it's probably taken them a while to get to that point where they feel comfortable asking for that request. So, yeah, and then again, not making a huge deal if you do misgender.
I can definitely piggyback off of the adjustment thing of accidentally being misgendered by family members that are very receptive. I mean, I still go home and I have someone who's a mother figure to me, and because she knew me pre-transition and we have a very close bond, there's times she'll be thinking about something in the past where, my other life was there, and she'll slip up and she beats herself up more. It's actually cute because she's a sweet Mississippi woman, and she's like, well, damn, I'm just stupid. And I'm like, no, baby, I get you. Oh, I'm terrible. No, I got you. I'd have told you if you were being, And, so that's a great thing, and I'm grateful. You covered on how to handle misgendering. I mean, that's the best way to do it as far as removing the audience, because you see another thing. If they get an audience, let's say you have some of the wrong people in the audience, and everything settles down, that wrong person could be like, and a lot of violence can happen. It sets up not just for emotional damage, but it makes things a lot unsafe, a lot less safe for them. And so it is a very thin line. And, just being like, oop, my bad, sorry, oops, my bad, and just move on. That's the safest way for all parties concerned. I mean, I've seen people trying to go to the bathroom here and been gate kept. Like, what are you doing? No. Pre-transition, ooh, I got are you a boy or a girl? I did. Even my niece, my younger niece, after transition, she was like, and I'm Cajun, so just a little piece, we call aunt taunt and uncle nonk. Now, my nieces knew me pre-transition, so when they were born, I was like, baby, taunt's right here. I mean, I've been taunt. And when I transitioned, I told them, I said, look, I don't care what you call me as long as you're not disrespectful. Because they grew up knowing me as taunt, and me as taunt as a label, not as a person. So my youngest niece, we were driving, and she's like, Taunt, I gotta ask you something. I'm like, what, my baby? She says, are you a boy or a girl? And this is post, I'm developing facial hair, my voice is dropping. I said, well, baby. I said, when I was growing up, I was born with girl parts. And over time, I realized that what was inside me and my soul didn't match the parts. The insides didn't match the outsides. So what I've been doing is I've been taking medication, and it's really been helping me. It changes how I look, but it's making my insides and my outsides match. And she was like, okay. I said, so to clarify, my baby, I'm a boy. But yeah, my insides and my outsides match. And that was that. I mean, and my older niece, she'll go to war for me. She has fought against family members behind me. And a generation back, when I was 11, or my sister was 11, their mom, I was a lesbian in another life. And so I had the same, getting caught in the bathroom or sir, all that stuff, which I used to like being called sir. Makes sense. I didn't know why, So I told my sister, I said, look, I sat her down and told her what gay was, what lesbian was, and I told her, I'm lesbian. This is who I am. It doesn't change who I am, but it's a part of me, and it's okay, and it's safe. And at the time, my sister was in school, and kids were using that, oh, that's gay. Anything, if it was weird, ooh, that's gay. After we had that talk, one, she never did it again. And when she got into high school, she had two fellow bandsmen that were lesbians. And She called me up. Oh my God, I've got these people. I've got that back. And I'm like, that's my girl. And since 12 years old, high school, she raised my nieces to be an ally. She has gone to war for me. And when I transitioned, she said, well, that makes sense. You always were like a big brother to me. And she gave me that on a card for my birthday, so, you know. But, you know, I've been very lucky. And that respect for my process and understanding gender within so many age groups in my family, it has been a godsend, you know. And I just love how kids are today. I mean, it's just the norm. They're like, all right.
Let's just say mom brings in Becky, she, her, all this stuff, right? And I'm like, okay, great, group's about to start. Mom, you got to go because this is just for young people, right? And so we go around the group, and I remind the group that, like, hey, this is a great place to try on new names, pronouns, whatever, see what feels right to you, you know? And mind you, that's what they're there for, right? And so Becky's like, so can I use James, he, him? And I'm like, yeah, and it's now James, he, him. And you can just see, I can see it with these kids. Their whole body changes. And they're like, oh, this is amazing. Like, you can see it, physically see it, right? And they just want to be seen, how they see themselves. And I don't know how many kids have told me, AJ, why can't they just see me for who I am? Why can't they see me? You know? And it's so hard. And it is, but for the people in the audience, the people that are going to watch this, it is so easy to make somebody's day just using the pronouns that they like. It tells them that you see them, right? And as we said up here already, like, if you make a mistake, you know, apologize, move on. But I also add, and do better. You know, don't be taunting somebody and be like, yeah, okay, Becky, and then be like, oh, I'm sorry, James, right? That's not being an ally. That's not being genuine with that person. And you continue to do it on, you're bullying them. And you're telling them, you don't get to decide who you are, I get to decide who you are. I decide what people see when they look at you. And that's just bullying 101. So you can think about that in any kind of scenario. And all you have to do is just honor who they tell you they are, right? I see we've got some sports fans here, right? You're a Saints fan. You were talking about that a little bit. Probably been a Saints fan since you were a baby, right? And I'm like, what if I was like, oh, no, you're not. You're a Buccaneers fan now. That's what you're going to do. I'm going to tell you who you're going to root for, right? Like that. And it's a sports team. It's not the same thing. I'm not trying to conflate gender identity with sports teams, but like, these are some of the things that make up who we are, right? And you can't tell people to be who you say they are. You know who you are. You know what your personal style is. You know how you identify yourself. Maybe you're still working on it, but at least you know today, right? It's just a matter of respecting people. So.
I'll just add a little bit of, from like a research perspective, what you're doing to people is generating shame, right? And that shame is internalized, and then it impacts their mental health. So whether it's depression or anxiety, or they've actually had trauma, right? These pieces really get under the skin and affect their health. They affect the way they navigate the world. It affects the type of job they might choose to work in, where they live, who they socialize with, and also how they cope, right? And so these all have huge impacts on people's health. And as AJ and others have said, all you have to do is just honor who they say they are. It's really easy. Use the name they tell you. I often think with pronouns, if you're not sure, pronouns are used when you're talking about a person in third person. to somebody else and I'm mentioning AJ, right? And then using the pronoun and not actually saying AJ. If you don't know, use the name they tell you. It's very comfortable just to be like, hi, my name is Jace, what's your name? And just use their name, right? And then when it's time when you're thinking about using third person or it's for on a form or something like that, then that's an appropriate time to ask. But a lot of people are trying to also navigate and be really open, and I meet them and I'm like, hi, I'm Jace, and they're like, what are your pronouns? And I'm a little bit like, I don't really know if you're safe. And I want to tell you what my pronouns are because I could be putting myself in a place where either you will create shame for me and misgender me, or you'll ignore what I've told you and think it's not important. And so those are the pieces I think we have to think about when we're navigating pronouns and why it's so important just to honor the identity that people tell us, that they express to us. And then if there's a time you get close, they feel safe, then that may be a time where you can talk about it. And so that's sort of my perspective on it.
Thank you all so much for elaborating and sharing like a number of different perspectives for that question. Thank you very much. We are cruising right along, so I want to make sure, I'm going to skip ahead. I want to make sure to cover one of these questions. So I want to ask about resources, right? So what resources do you know of that are available for students or people in general who might be struggling with gender-related questions or concerns?
The center, again, just down the street. We offer at the center advocacy, health and wellness, and community building. And so we advocate for people in the community. If you need help with name changes, stuff like that, we can help direct you to somebody that can help you for those things. We have testing clinic at the center on Maryland, and we just opened up a new location. 6 months ago, on Las Vegas Boulevard in Charleston, so close to the center, where we do full primary care. And so we're focusing on gender affirming care, women's health care. We're building a whole wellness center there. We have mental health resources now. Our first floor will be a whole behavioral health center. And that should be maybe in fall. And then we have our groups. So our youth group, 13 to 17 is on Tuesdays, and then 18 to 24 is on Thursdays. And then for any age, we have translation. Translation is our longest running group. It happens every Friday at 6 o'clock, and it's very intergenerational. It's very like cross the spectrum or continuum of different types of trans identities, and it's just a beautiful space. I used to facilitate that group when I was getting my marriage and family therapy degree. So yeah, anything that anybody needs, we're always there for you. We've been in the community for 32 years, so we're not going anywhere. We're building and we're growing, and we hope to see you down there. And it's for everybody, so you don't have to be in the LGBTQ community to come to the center. We have all kinds of resources. We do food distribution on Wednesdays. UNLV Dental School is there on Fridays, the library district. So there's a ton of resources that we bring to the center that people can access there rather than having to go to these social service offices.
Being president of our Grad Pride Alliance, we are just getting off the ground. Right now, we're starting to just get members and build the fellowship. With Tyler and I both in the upper levels of our program, you know, we want to see this thing grow and become self-sustainable. Our original mission is to eventually work with individuals at the center, and we were thinking about getting my top surgeon to come and speak to doctors, John Brocious. Yes, love him to death. He is my hero. Love him. So that's where we're going with it. That's the end mission, which we've been going for, a year. So it's a slow process. As far as university services with us. We're new. So I know if we need things, we definitely reach out to the academic community. This is our lovely advisor. We just met. But we're building. And so any first years that are interested, Grad Pride Alliance, come find us on the involvement page. We'd love to have you. And so right now we're just kind of in flux and we're growing. And as far as if y'all need me as a sociologist, or in my department specifically, it is a very safe space. Like, if you're having a bad day and you just need to get away from the crazy, come to the social department. We will give you hugs and be like, hey, what do you need? And there's a lot of us, not just trans people, but there's a lot of queer individuals in that department. So even if you're just like, oh man, I'm just overwhelmed, come to the sociology department. It is very soothing. We have people that we adopt every semester that come from different programs that need a class or just need a space. No questions asked. And we have undergrads that are on the floor, grad students, and the faculty's great. But yeah, Grad Pride Alliance, come on. I'm gonna let you take over.
So, Grad Pride Alliance is for grad students, but we have no problem being like father figure kind of. For the undergrads, there is Spectrum, and they are awesome. I wish we were where they are because they are very interactive with the undergrads. There's also the Office of Student Diversity. They definitely can point you in directions for stuff like that. But yeah, we are for graduate students, but if you just want to talk to very, very busy queer people, you can reach out to us. But yeah, for undergrad, definitely Spectrum is very impressive and very great advocates. So
I would also recommend for students if you're, so I'm trying to think of the correct name of our group. I think it's like UNLV, right? And so that is the faculty and staff who are members of the community. And so there are a lot of us. And a piece is, I would say, I can't tell you today, like, where do you go? What office do you go to if you want them to change your name in the system or change the pronouns that are listed? But if you come to one of us, I'll find it out. You don't need to navigate it. I will ask the administration. I will navigate it. I don't need to tell them who's asking me, and I will just figure out the process and then share that with you. A lot of my students have taken it on already. They're just like, I don't need your help, I'm good. I just need to know that you'll fight for me if they don't treat me nicely. And I'm like, yeah, come to me, tell me your experience. I will speak to the administration about it if you're mistreated or in any part of the process is uncomfortable. And me as a mentor to students, I am often correcting administration. They just read the name and they assume a gender, right? And use a pronoun. And I'm like, correcting and multiple times like, it's he, each time, stop, like, have you asked a student their pronoun? Like, because that's wrong. So, yeah, I know. It's in my email, that's what it is. You can't see the tone, but yeah.
If y'all do the inputting, get it together. You'll have to hear the J's tone.
It's more to the administration or like the people, not to our actual students. But yeah, I want to make sure that you're respected. So I would say build relationships with us. If you need our support, that's what we're here for. And so we will make sure to advocate for you and find resources. And so that's a thing to check on too. I would say get involved with Grad Pride Alliance. Also, UNLV is doing a ton of different events to bring the community together. More than ever, I think that one way that we can get some healing, but also strength, is to be with each other. And so I encourage you just to tap into the networks and resources that we have here.
There's a gender clinic on campus, isn't there?
I do know that, like, So we have Dr. Sal Biazzo in the our student health, and I know Sal has worked some in the with like around gender affirming care. I've never used the care, so I can't tell you anything about it. But I do know that there are services here. But I would say also talk to classmates, talk to other people that have used the services to find out about it. And then you've also heard there's resources at the center, so.
Yeah, so if you know, your insurance is like through the school and you find somebody here that's offering that service and you like your doctor, then that's great because it's all covered. If for some reason you don't have insurance, don't let that be a roadblock for you because we will help people out at the center regardless of. I mean, we'd love it if you have insurance, obviously, but if you don't, we don't turn anybody away.
If anybody is looking, grad students who do have the provided insurance, or anybody that has insurance, if you want to go through UNLV, if you're looking for a testosterone-specific doctor, Dr. Adam Levy is amazing. I had a really good endocrinologist like that back home. Came here during COVID, got who I could get, and found Dr. Levy after what happened, and that's a whole other story. But the thing I loved about him, day one, he's like, I give all of my trans patients my email. I said, yeah, this is what I'm talking about. I can reach out to this man. For those of us that are going into education or may find themselves teaching on a grad level, what I prefer to do in an in-person class is I say, look, we're going to go through roll, just real quick. If there's any preferred pronouns, names, and you don't feel comfortable telling me now, come to me after class. I got you. But if you do feel comfortable, by all means. I don't push the name, pronoun, because there are people figuring it out, not comfortable, and I feel like it gives them the agency. And I've had that happen in my undergrad classes. So it was really good, and I like to keep that. As far as my online courses, I'm still trying to navigate that because I don't want to put it out and potentially endanger students. So depending on your modality, you may have to figure out, but in person, give them the agency because then it allows them to feel safe in your class, and that is paramount.
Thank you all so much. And it's time to wrap up, but before I officially close out, I just want to give panelists an opportunity if there's anything that you wanted to say and didn't have an opportunity to say, a last-minute thought.
One of the questions was, how do you respond to people who are resistant to using proper pronouns or proper names? And it was a meme I saw once. I play Pokemon Go. I'm way too old to play it, but I play it. I know, right? But it was a meme where it was like, if a Pokemon, if you can use like the right name for after a Pokemon is evolved, because the Pokemon will go from like this to this to this, and it's like, if you can literally use the new name of the evolved Pokemon without any issues, you can figure out using proper pronouns and proper names. And it's just, that tends to be, if I'm gonna like argue on behalf of someone or even for myself, it's like, geez, you can't even play like a video game. You can't even like follow the rules of a simple video game. It has a tendency to kind of disarm them somewhat. So like that's my little analogy when I am dealing with people who are resistant. It's like, what do you call the evolution of Pikachu? Like, and it's actually worked a few times. It was fun. I was like, yeah, okay. So it's a tool if you want to use it.
I want to leave you with a reminder that like students are our customer. And so what you want, you should voice to the administration and to the faculty. A lot of times students are really intimidated, or even the way your course is structured, there's a hierarchy of like, I'm the professor and you must do as I say. But you are actually our customer, and without you, we do not exist. So I want you to feel empowered to speak up, to tell the administration, to tell your faculty what you want, how you want to be treated, right? These pieces. And always you have to do that within your resources and what's comfortable. But I just want you to remember that you're the reason we are here. And so you are important, you're valued by us, and we cannot do this without you. And so I want to leave you with that.
Drink water, eat food, take your meds, and read banned books.